Hello student, good morning. Today we will start the host parasite specificity. The term host parasite specificity is used here to indicate the relations between host and parasites regarding the degree of susceptibility of the host and the degree of infectivity or powers of infestation of the parasites. For examples, man is the susceptible to infection or in infestation with certain species of the protozoa, worms and arthropods, and his degree of susceptibility differs more or less for each species. Rats are susceptible to certain of the same species and to different species as well. As this is host parasite specificity viewed from the standpoint of the host. On the other hand, host parasite specificity, when applied to the parasites, refers to their degrees of the infectivity or powers of infestation. For example, entamoeba histolytica is known to be able to live in man, monkeys, dogs, cats, and rats, but infects certain species of host more readily than others and varies with respect to the pathogenicity in the different host. A committee of the American Society of Parasitologists recently criticized this term but apparently did not understand the way in which the writer meant it to be used. Host susceptibility. Parasitologists have long recognized different types of host with respect to their susceptibility to various parasites. Thus, if a host is easily parasitized by a certain species, it is said to be tolerant, whereas if it is difficult to parasitize, it is classed as refractory. A host that is frequently found parasitized by a certain species in nature is known as natural host, where one that does not become so parasitized may be considered as a foreign host. If a species of the parasite that habitually lives in or on the certain host species is found in or on a host that is very seldom infected, that host is spoken of as an accidental or casual host. A host may become infected. That host is spoken of as an accidental or casual host. A host may become infected but throw off the infection after a short time, in which case it is known as provisional or transitory host, or it may serve as a host for a short stage in the life cycle of parasite, thus becoming a temporary host. Frequently, it is possible to infect species of the host is laboratory that do not become infected as a rule in nature either because their habits are such that they do not come into proper relations with the parasites or because they are reproductory except when large numbers of parasites are present or when these are administered to them in certain definite ways not usually possible in nature. Whether or not a susceptible species of animal becomes infected with a particular species of parasite in nature depends primarily on three factors. Animals and parasites must live in the same geographical regions. The habits of the animals must be such as to bring it into proper relations with the infective stage of the parasite, and the third, the life cycle of the parasite must be such that its infective stage is reached when and where the host is available to be parasitized. The first factor mentioned is so obvious that little discussion is necessary. The absence of certain disease from certain regions is frequently due not to the absence of the susceptible host but to the absence of the parasites. This, for examples, may account for their absence of the malaria from countries where susceptible human host and the proper species of Anopheles mosquitoes exist, but where the malarial parasites have never been introduced. On the other hand, many cases might be cited of diseases that have appeared in various regions previously free from them because of the introduction of the causative parasite. The other two factors are really the same considered from the two standpoints of host and parasites respectively. If the life cycle of a parasite and the activities of its natural host are studied side by side, it will appear as though both host and parasite were actually trying to bring about a situation favorable for infections. For example, the gametocytes of the malarial organisms live in the peripheral blood, where they cannot fail to reach the stomach of the mosquito that sucks up the blood. The infective sporozoites congregates in the salivary glands of the mosquito, where they seems to lie in wait to be inoculated into a new host. The mosquito feeds on the blood of man and thus enables the parasites to enter the blood streams, whereas it might feed on fruit juices as it is able to do in the laboratory. The infective mosquitoes bites usually at night when the host is asleep and is thus able to inoculate the sporozoite successfully during the uninterrupted meal. Uninterrupted meal. A change in any one of these conditions might easily bring about the annihilation of the race of the parasites. For example, if the gametocytes were localized in the internal organs of man, or if the sporozoites did not reach the salivary glands of the mosquitoes, there would be no spread of the malaria and the disease would soon die out. An infection that involves injury to the host may be acute, malignant, fulminating, chronic, or benign. But the evidence does not indicate that susceptibility of host to an infection has an bearing on the characters of the infection. Okay, thank you.